frickin' works. It just frickin' works. This is a ridiculous amount of performance for a 1S. Look at that. Prop wash? No. Shuttering? No. Just a little fucking... Oh, excuse me, I'm swearing. Just a little pop and go. It's just bananas. It's so good. It's so good. And it has prop guards too. So we could fly it indoors. Oh, there we go. Hey, look at that. It's great. It's unbelievable. If you'd have asked me 2 or 3 years ago whether you could get a digital video transmitter into a micro quadcopter like this Rotor Riot Vision40, I'd have said no. In fact, I'm willing to bet if you go back and dig through my old footage, you can find an example of me saying that when you put a digital video transmitter onto a quadcopter this small, it's too heavy and it flies like crap. I've said in the past that about a 3-inch toothpick is about as small, or maybe a 95mm Cinewhoop is about as small as flies good with a digital video transmitter. But all that is changing, because the Rotor Riot Vision40 is a 75mm tiny whoop. And yeah, 75mm is not the sort of canonical 65mm formula that defined the tiny whoop. A lot of people like 75mm better anyway, and it's got a Walksnail video transmitter on board. And not only does it fly like good, it flies like a tiny whoop. Mostly. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're gonna learn something today. I certainly learned something the first time I flew this freaking thing. When you've got a quadcopter that weighs about 20 grams dry or about 28 grams with a battery, adding just a couple grams can make a significant difference in the way that it flies. So 28 grams, and that's not the lightest 65mm tiny whoop that you're going to find out there, but it's pretty standard. How does the Vision40 stack up? The Vision40 dry comes in about 37 grams. It's already heavier than the 65mm, and we haven't even put the battery on yet. The batteries that are recommended are a 450 milliamp hour 1S, and that puts us at 50 grams. So we are in the neighborhood of about twice as heavy with the Vision40 compared to that pure analog 20 gram dry weight tiny whoop experience. And if what you're looking for is that pure 20 gram dry weight tiny whoop experience, the Vision40 is not going to deliver that. But you might say that's not a fair comparison, because this isn't a 65mm tiny whoop, it's a 75mm tiny whoop. And a lot of people prefer the 75mm class. They find that the larger motors and the larger battery you can get when you go up to this larger quadcopter means you get a little more power, you can do a little bit more aggressive acro moves. These little 65mm guys are not known for their fling ability when doing freestyle, and they're not known for having like enough power to like pull out of a power loop. They're really underpowered and they take a lot of skill to fly well. The 75 flies a little bit more like a bigger quadcopter. Not a lot, but a little bit more, and just gives you that little bit more freedom to just kind of cut loose and not have to work around its limitations quite as much. So then, fair comparison time. Here is a Beta FPV 75mm, and it comes in at 31 grams. 31 grams versus 37 grams. So the Vision40 is still heavier than an analog 75mm, but not twice as heavy. It's pretty close. And what it brings to the table is pretty freaking special. If we were to look at the motors from a 75mm tiny whoop from a few years ago, they would be 0802 in size. That means that they are 8mm in diameter and 2mm in height. And those motors are just about perfect for driving the smaller props of a 65mm tiny whoop. But when you go up to a 75mm tiny whoop, they typically will run 1.6-inch or 40mm props, and those motors are just a little undersized to do that. But they're just, well, by my memory, there just weren't many motors in this class to pick from. We made 0802 motors, and that was pretty much it. Not anymore. The motors on the Vision40 are 1002 in size, and that means they're 10mm in diameter instead of 8mm and 2mm in height. And it doesn't take a genius in mathematics to know that when you go from 8mm in diameter to 10mm in diameter, you get a much bigger motor. And that bigger motor translates into more power and more responsiveness. Although interestingly, we're still running the same 40mm props that we were running on the 0802 motors on the previous generation of 75mm quads. You might be tempted to think that a larger, more powerful motor would let you go up to a larger prop, and in some respects that's true, but one of the goals of this quadcopter is to maintain that 75mm diagonal wheelbase. We're not trying to go up to an 85mm quad, and going to larger props might require that. The other thing is that I think that those 0802 motors, as I said earlier, were perfect for these little props on the 65mm quads, but they were a little bit overpropped. They were overworked. They weren't able to really handle the 45mm props very well. Yes, we made them work. Yes, people got good results from them, but oh my God. These bigger motors, as soon as I flew them, I knew they were so much better suited to these 40mm props than the 0802s from before. Rotor Riot did not attempt to reinvent the wheel when it comes to the frame of the Vision40. They used one of the perfectly acceptable existing tiny whoop frames, and the frame that they settled on was the Happymodel Mobula 7 frame. That's an okay choice, although most of the folks I talk to who fly and race tiny whoops seem to think that the Beta FPV Meteor frame is like the one to get. Basically, I've heard people call it indestructible, which, given that it's a Beta FPV product, kind of makes me feel weird. Because Beta FPV products are generally not known for being indestructible, but apparently the Meteor frame is one that they really got right. That being said, this is the new V4 version of the Happymodel Mobula 7, which has been designed to be just a little bit heavier, but also a little bit more durable. The flight controller is the T-Motor F411. It is an all-in-one Betaflight flight controller with built-in ESC. That ESC is a 32-bit BL32 ESC rated at 13 amps. And I think 13 amps is going to be overkill for what we're working with here, but we really want overkill with an ESC. The better the amp rating, the more durable the ESC is going to be, all other things being equal. It's pretty nice to see a 32-bit ESC in this size class. A lot of these all-in-one tiny whoop flight controllers are going with 8-bit BL S ESCs and 16-bit BL S, not 32. That's the point. BL S ESCs, and that's okay. You can get good performance out of BL S, but there are some features of BL 32, like the adjustable PWM frequency, that are especially useful in getting the most performance out of these micro quadcopters. We can assume that Rotor Riot has tuned this to their specifications, and you shouldn't have to be tweaking with the PID tune and so forth. That's one of the things you're supposed to be paying for when you buy a Rotor Riot Bind and Fly, is that they're sort of giving you the bespoke experience instead of just chucking a box off the warehouse shelf over to the shipping office and forgetting you exist. The video transmitter is the Walksnail 1S video transmitter, and in case you're wondering, it only comes with Walksnail. Doesn't come with DJI, doesn't come with HD0. If you don't fly the Walksnail Avatar video system, this quadcopter isn't for you. Although, I have got some other quadcopters, like this one from Beta FPV, that I've got in the queue to review that might be more your style. The Walksnail 1S video transmitter is pretty impressive in that it delivers all of the performance and capabilities of the Walksnail system in a small, lightweight package that can run off a 1S battery. In the past, HD0 has really been the king of digital tiny whoops. And the reason for that was that in the past, HD0 was really the only digital system that made a video transmitter that was small and light enough to fit on a platform like this. But the Walksnail 1S video transmitter is really changing the game. Many people prefer the range and penetration of the Walksnail system over the HD0 system, which has less range and penetration, but more consistent and lower latency. But you didn't have the choice. Basically, if you flew a big quad, you might choose Walksnail or DJI. If you flew a micro, you might choose HD0, and then you might also put HD0 in your bigger quads, but the majority of people who could handle the weight of the bigger transmitter didn't choose HD0, they chose one of these other systems. Now, with the Walksnail 1S video transmitter, you kind of don't have to compromise. It's not quite as light as the HD0 video transmitter, and it's significantly heavier than analog, but it does deliver that digital image quality, range, and penetration, and it's just a really, really exciting development for people who have the Walksnail video system and who like to fly micros. I'm really impressed with the design of the canopy. It's like there's nothing radical here, but like I was really impressed with the thoughtful way that the receiver has been installed. We've just got this zip tie here. It is secure, it's held in place. There's no sort of janky double-sided tape to come loose. I really like that we're using an Express LRS EP2 receiver. That means we've got this ceramic antenna. The receiver is completely self-contained. There's nothing hanging off to get chopped in the props or anything like that. It's just a really nice, compact, well-designed overall platform. Rotor Riot is shipping the Vision40 with a BT2.0 connector on it, and that's a fantastic choice. Although these days, I think the GNB A30 connector is going to take over from the BT2.0 as the preferred choice. If you want to hear more about that, I've got a video about the A30 connector, and I'll put a link to it down in the video description. You can check that out when you're done here. The short version is that A30 is similar in performance to BT2.0, but there's no lights. Every BT2.0 connectors all come from Beta FPV, and every battery and every pigtail pays a little bit of money to them, which means that BT 2.0 stuff is a little bit more expensive than it otherwise would be. I think that what we're going to see is that batteries are going to come out with the A30 connectors on them. They're going to have just as good a performance, but be a little bit less expensive than BT 2.0, and I think that means that hobbyists are going to flock to them. The batteries that we're going to be using are these WeBleed FPV 450 milliamp hour cells with BT 2.0 connectors on them. Apologies to WeBleed for putting this tape over their logo, but the batteries were a little bit loose in the Vision40, and I added the tape to give them just a little bit more friction. Now, you don't have to buy these exact batteries if you get the Vision40, but whichever batteries you get, you should 1000% get this folded or square cell style of battery. These batteries perform much, much better than this style. Now, this is only a 300 milliamp hour, but this is what's called a pillow cell style of battery, and this square cell style, whatever they're doing with them, they're way better. And they're more expensive too, I'm sorry to tell you. But they're way better, and they're 1000% worth your money. I'll have some links in the video description below to different batteries you could choose to get in that square cell style. As well, I'm going to have a link to a video I did where I tested some batteries, and you'll see just how much better the square cells performed. Now, the Rotor Riot Vision40 comes in both a 1S and a 2S version. The 2S version has lower KV motors, and there are some changes to the PID tuning to make it fly appropriately for that version. But I'm going to be doing all my testing on the 1S version. And I don't know, like the purist in me, there's something I like about a 1S tiny whoop. Like, so far, the way to get good performance out of a 75mm tiny whoop has been to go to 2S. But then you've got this bigger, heavier battery, and it feels like you're going sort of too far in a direction and making too many compromises. When I heard that they were offering the Vision40 in a 1S version, I was excited because I was like, okay, let's see how freaking good this thing could be on 1S. It was pretty freaking good. It's time to go outside and show you. And the first thing I want to show you is how freaking impressed I am with how the Vision40 flies as a 1S tiny whoop. And no, I'm not gonna do the old trope of it flies just like a 5-inch, because it doesn't. But it flies ridiculously good for a 1S tiny whoop, especially one this heavy. Let's do a power loop. No problem. In fact, I've struggled in the past with this specific power loop under my fence with a tiny whoop, with a 65 millimeter. Oh, grass. Because as I came down, I would just tank into the ground, but I didn't, did I? I didn't tank into the ground there. Did you see I got on the throttle and it was just fine? It just stopped. Just freaking works. It just freaking works. It flies so good. This is everything I've actually wanted from a 1S, like a tiny whoop. 65 millimeter tiny whoops have always just slightly disappointed me when I tried to push them. They were okay for kind of acro flying, like for kind of fast forward flight like this. They're okay. They're great for racing. You can really push them. But as soon as you start doing like freestyly moves, they fall apart. And you have to really work to overcome that. I've seen people freestyle 65 millimeters before, and I think they are really skilled pilots who are working overtime to compensate for the deficiencies of the platform, specifically the lack of power. Or they're really skilled builders who have built an ultra lightweight version of it where the power is not an issue, but then you end up with durability problems. And this thing is in a really, really sweet spot where it's got plenty of power for its weight. The flight time is ridiculous. Look, what am I at? What am I at? I'm at 3 minutes, and now I'm okay. We're done. I was gonna say oh, there it is. There it went. Okay, 3 minutes. Maybe not ridiculous. Maybe that's exaggerating it a little. Let's get some more up tilt. Let's go all the up tilt. That's as much up tilt as this frame can do. Let's see how fast she goes. See, plenty of speed for an outdoor area like this. A lot of times tiny whoops really kind of aren't great at wide open areas. But this thing has plenty of speed. I could go just about anywhere. It's pretty smooth too. Like I'm not seeing a ton of shudders or shakiness. It flies really good. I just can't believe. This is oh God, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? I'm in a tree. Let me back up again. Hell yes. I can't believe this is a little 1S. This is a ridiculous amount of performance for a 1S. Look at that. Prop wash? No. Shuddering? No. Just a little fucking, oh, excuse me, I'm swearing. Just a little pop and go. It's just bananas. It's so good. It's so good. And it has prop guards too. So we can fly it indoors. Oh, there we go. Hey, look at that. It's great. It's unbelievable. Oh, there's a thing of water. Let's try not to crash in that. I didn't even know that was there. Hey. What? Okay. The truck's done. Whee! Whee! It's so much fun to fly. It's so much fun to fly. Whee! Whee! Oh God, okay, bail out. Oh God, okay, crashing, okay. And we're in the grass. That's too bad. Let's see, can we turn over? No, we are shit out of luck. Well, it's still a tiny whoop in that respect. Can't turtle mode for shit. I don't know what it is about this formula that works so freaking well, but it works so freaking well. I am so freaking impressed with this little quadcopter. I don't know what it is about it that I like so damn much. just seems to have like the perfect balance of fast and powerful enough to be fun to fly, to do acro and freestyle without feeling the limitations of the small size as acutely as I do when I fly like a 65 millimeter. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. I've said in the past that there's no point to 75 millimeter tiny whoops. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but I'm pretty sure those exact words might have come out of my mouth. What I've said in the past is that they're too big and powerful to be like really good in tight indoor environments, that you're better with a little bit of an underpowered 65 millimeter in those environments. And then when you get outdoors, they're not really fast and powerful enough to make the best use of the space. And I stand by that, except it's 2023 and we've got these 1002 motors and we've got this additional power, and I think that's making a big difference. I think that now I'm finally seeing what everybody else was liking about 75 millimeter before. Maybe. It's a great little formula. It's durable in a way that the open prop 2-inch and 1.6 inch, like the Flywoo Nano that I've reviewed, those things are a blast. They fly really good. In fact, they probably fly better than this in terms of acro performance. But you crash them and the props get all wonked up, and then what? Here we've got prop guards. We can fly this indoors without screwing up the furniture. We can fly it outdoors. It's a great, great little package. And I'm so enraptured with it. And the Walksnail video transmitter really completes it. It means you can get this tiny whoop style of flight without having the additional weight of a big, heavy digital video transmitter like the Pavo Pico, the Beta FPV Pavo Pico, which is 85 millimeters and is super heavy compared to this and flies much worse. What if there was something like this that wasn't made by my friends at Rotor Riot? Because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I'm just saying these nice things because the people at Rotor Riot make it and I'm friends with them and so I have no integrity. And that's not true. You probably know that. But like, sure, wouldn't it be nice if I reviewed this, which is a very similar platform? This is the analog version, but it does come with a Walksnail version. Well, I'm gonna. Not today, though. Today, we got the Rotor Riot Vision40. If you're looking for a little ripper of a tiny whoop, this is a hell of a contender, and you should check it out, as long as you fly Walksnail. If you don't fly Walksnail, maybe we'll be testing something else another day. Links in the video description if you want to pick it up. They are affiliate links. I get a commission if you click that link and then make any purchase after that. So if you want to support me, click the link, make a purchase. If you don't want to support me, go to Rotor Riot's page and don't click the link. Just type it in and find it yourself. This is the part of the video where I tell you which video you might want to watch next. And there are two videos I'm going to show you. First of all, I want you to take a look at one of the best flying 65 millimeter tiny whoops I've flown recently. The Mobeetle 6. I'm going to put a card on screen to that review. This is an analog quad, so it's much lighter. It's in a very different category, and I think it shows how something like this compares to the classic tiny whoop. In addition, whenever I do get around to reviewing this Beta FPV 75 millimeter, which is almost the same, I'll add a card to that and a link in the video description below, and you can check that out. I'll see you there.